Although the death penalty per se is not desirable and prohibited in some countries, the methods of execution varied from hanging to shot or even slaughter. But they all look traditional compared to some old, brutally shaken methods. A collection of the most horrible old ways of execution that will make you feel that the current execution methods are much easier, and from them. Putrefaction. A method of execution of an ancient Persian, in which the culprit was stripped of his clothes and tied inside a wooden coffin or hollow tree, showing only his head and limbs, and being forced to eat honey and milk until he gets diarrhea, and his body is painted with honey to attract insects. After a short time the insects actually meet the comet's droppings and begin to eat his body until he gets rotted, and it takes about 17 days. Republican marriage. One of the strangest means of execution in history, France followed that way in ancient times, where a man and woman were tied together and thrown into the river to sink together. Crushing elephants. This method was used in Southeast Asia, where the offenders were thrown to the elephants to crush them. Elephants were trained in this process and the victim was tortured. This method was used to prove that the animals in nature were the rulers of the region. Copper bull. The ruler of Greece, the tyrant Valerius, adopted this method of execution in the 6th century BC, when the wise ordered Paralos to devise a new means of execution. He invented the bronze bull, a copper or iron structure that enters the comet through its gate and fires under the bull until the victim was completely swarming inside. And he had pipes to inflate the screaming of the victim. The interesting thing is that Valerius, when he wanted to make sure the effectiveness of the copper bull, entered the wise Paralos and was the first person executed in this way. Colombian necktie. This was the method favored by drug gangs in Colombia to torture the victims. The comet's throat was torn and the tongue was pulled out. Cat claw. This method was used in Spain. The executioner wore a sharp iron-like instrument that resembled a cat's claw and removed and tearing the skin of the victim to death completely. This method takes a long time to torture. Bamboo. The victim was tied over bamboo sticks, which grow 1 foot per day. These sticks would penetrate the victim's body slowly until he died completely. Burial before death. The victim is buried alive in a wooden coffin and the coffin is placed 6 feet below the ground. This method was used in the 1937 Nanjing massacre. Lynching. This method is known as slow death by cutting, one of the forms of execution that China began to ban in the 20th century. The body parts of the victim were cut off for days, trying to keep his life as long as possible until he died very much. The bloody eagle. This method was used in Northern Europe, and it depends on cutting the body starting from the back and spine and then removing the lungs with salt spray on wounds until the victim's life ends. Like video and subscribe channel. Thank you for watching.